I searched Reddit for some underrated strategies, and this is what I found. First was the Dragon's Breath army. This is super simple, as all you have to do is surround Gwendolyn with a swarm of 0-3-2 wizards, and they take care of the rest. You can take this even further by getting 2 discount villages, making them very affordable. But Gwen's passive buff to these fire breathers made them a force to be reckoned with. There was just one obvious weakness: purples. But that was easily countered with a plutonium reactor up front, so we never had to worry about that again. Next, we got an alchemist and a few more wizards. 5 more in fact, and the balloons didn't stand a chance. This not only let us skip a MIB, but actually allowed us to save up the $65,000 for a permabrew alchemist on round 88. After that, it was all downhill for the balloons. We only got a few more wizards and watched the balloons melt under the heat of all this napalm. I mean, not even round 98 made it around the first bend. Up next, we have a balloon exclusion zone with a MIB Skip. Something I don't do very often, but I'm aware how strong it can be if pulled off correctly. The start doesn't really matter, but I used a dart monkey and submarine to help me get Pat Fusty down early. For whatever reason, I did the completely unnecessary and greedy double discount village. Apparently I wanted a tough early game, but with these discounts we quickly got a 203 Dartling Gunner and a 320 Alchemist up and running. This carried until we could afford the bads, and he was instantly set to target independent, so we never had to micro him again. Normally I would turn our 0-2-2 village into a MIB, but that was not the point of this run. When you have the space like we do here, you can do something even better than getting a Monkey Intelligence Bureau, and that's giving your main damage dealer their own personal acidic mixture dip alchemists. So we got 4 2-0 elks that were only in range of the Dartling Gunner. This gives us a 100% uptime on AMD, which not only gives the Dartling Gunner lead popping power, but also extra damage to ceramics, mobs, and fortified leads. This was so strong that rounds 63 and 64 barely got on screen and was more than enough to save up for the balloon exclusion zone, which we got on round 82. Now, there were many upgrades I wanted to get, but this was already enough to win, leaving us with almost $74,000 left over. In fact, had I put our submarine on submerged mode earlier, we would have accidentally pulled off a 2 megapops challenge. Moving on, we have the incredibly expensive super mines. Not the easiest thing to save up for, but that's nothing a Mob Glue, Dragon's Breath Wizard, and Sada can't handle. Luckily, the combo of Glue and Sada outputs some crazy damage, and the Dragon's Breath is great for how cheap it is. Then, we just had to put our Spike Factory near the end of the track and save up. The nice thing about this guy is that it specializes in taking out ceramics, especially when buffed by a Berserker Brew, and that was really the only thing that was getting past Sada and the Wizard. It took some time, but in the middle of round 99, we were finally able to afford the upgrade. Just in time too, because those fortified DDTs were definitely going to get through, but round 100 didn't stand a chance. Shifting gears, we have the Artillery Battery Army. Interesting, as I never use mortar monkeys, but I'll give it a shot. The obvious hero to choose was Striker Jones because of his global buffs to mortar monkeys, and my only other plan was to put a snowstorm in the dead center to really stall those super ceramics later on. Now for spamming mortar monkeys. I got a 202 village in the top right and placed 3 artillery batteries in its range. This was plenty of damage, especially since Striker can reset their cooldowns if needed with his level 10 ability. We got one of them to a Papana and buffed them all with a 401 Alchemist. Now all we have to do was place as many mortars as possible. Fast forward to around 99 and I had 8 artillery batteries, 1 Papana, and a signal flare. I planned on getting this guy to a shattering shells, but it wasn't needed. We absolutely crushed the bad and used a clean 100 abilities in the process. Now let's dive into something new. A beginner strat that was used to give him his first Chimps win. It actually had a decent foundation. Sada for the early game, a Mob Assassin for blimp damage, and a ton of Bionic Boomerangs for generic damage. On top of this, we got to buff them all with our primary mentoring village, giving us some free upgrades and extra popping power on most of our monkeys. Now, this would struggle with super ceramics, but he paired everything with 6 balloon impacts, which will bring them all to a halt. Then we got a shattering shells and 2 main Mob snipers. This is a ton of support, mostly around stalling, but it's time for some more damage. And he picked the cool choice of upgrading all our boomers to 042 turbo charges. A surprisingly effective option, as you could always activate a few abilities in a time of need and still have a ton left over for the future. Now, I would have opted for only 1 main Mob, a couple boomerangs, and gotten some cool tier 5 upgrades like the Mob Eliminator, Permacharge, and Primary Expertise, but that wouldn't have been a unique strategy, and this, as is, was able to take down the bad in a way that reminds me of how people take down quad. And last but not least, we have the Axis of Glue, meaning we're going to get all 3 tier 5 glue gunners. The early game was easy as we just went for Geraldo, a ninja, and an alchemist, and then placed a primary mentoring village. Next, it was time to get all 3 glue gunners down and turn the one up front into a 420 Bloon liquefier. This will be great damage for the mid game as his puddles destroy the ceramic rushes soon to come. After that, we got our second glue gunner to a MIB glue for a nice slow, and place a necromancer up front so that his graveyard will always be full and will have his Bloons spawn at the end of the track for a last line of defense. This was plenty to save up for the Bloons solver, which greatly increased our damage. Now, our only problem was ZOMGs and fortified BFBs, which is why we were running Geraldo. We placed all 4 of his bunnies for some global damage and saved up for a super glue. Once purchased, this made everything super easy to take down, allowing us to pick up our final tier 5 glue gunner on round 92, completing the axis of glue. Not quite sure what to do from here, we upgraded our village to a primary expertise for even more global damage, and then we picked up a second stronger stim alchemist. Finally, we wrapped up the run by placing 2 genies on round 99 to help us out with the final 2 rounds. Probably not needed, but it was nice not having to worry about the bad slowly swimming its way all the way through. But those were 6 unique strategies that I found on r/BTD6.